Welcome back, guys, to Dirt Drive Podcast. My name's Trevor. As always, we have Tom Sylvester with us.
You.
And Tim Germanario.
I'm full of spicy peppers.
Wow. Okay.
Why is it spicy?
Not something we recommend doing in the woods.
Spicy peppers.
Spicy peppers. They're gonna come back on you.
Carry toilet paper.
They're spicy in and out.
Yeah. But on that note, today we're going to be talking about rock crawling,
Spicy driving.
spicy driving,
Wop, 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 wop.
and
All the woo pow.
all the woo-pow, what rig you'll need, what equipment you'll need, what upgrades you'll need, all that good stuff. So I will turn it over to these guys and let them duke it out.
It's like the Ugga Duggas in the rocks. All of them, please.
Yeah, I was going to say all the Uggas.
Less of the Duggas.
So we're going to start this conversation like we started the last two about the different types of overlanding and rigs. Tim, what if unlimited budget doesn't matter? What are you buying for your rock crawler?
For just because it's an unlimited budget, I'm gonna buy the craziest thing you can. It'd be a red dot tube chassis, purpose built rock crawler for nothing else other than like hitting all the giant trails and doing the crazy stuff that you see on TV and see in these competitions. The guys just doing the absolute ridiculous everything. What I would enjoy that for a little while. But I think I'd have to eat, since it's unlimited, I'd have two.
Naturally.
37s, 35s, still has challenges, so you still have to drive. So it's not just point and shoot. You still have to think about obstacles and challenge yourself. You good there, buddy?
It's so spicy.
Why is it spicy? Because we've seen that. We've seen the guys that went from the low grade 35s lockers to LS swapped buggies, and we've seen them come back because they lose the joy.
Right.
You lose the challenge of actually having to be out in the woods. So probably I would change my vehicle, but probably the vehicle I have now, build wise, 35s, 37s, lockers, and factory power.
Yeah.
That way you still have to work it in the woods.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I've heard the same things from people as far as making it too easy. You know, I think some of that is terrain, some of that's build. You know, the general theme we always go with is drive and build for what you're doing, right? You know, a lot of the trails we do run and we see around here that are easily accessible. Yeah, 43s and a 800 horsepower buggy are definitely overkill.
Be fun. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. And does that mean you can't load that thing on a trailer, drive it across the country, and find something that's still going to challenge you and force you to be a good driver? No. I mean, that stuff's out there. It's just
Harder to get to. It's not as easily accessible
Well, there's not
as
as many of them, right?
True.
I mean,
It's further
they're
away.
far and few between, so...
going back to like what you said with the like a locker and 35s and like, tire size is a big one. Obviously the bigger the tire, the more stress that you're going to put on components. So when you're building things, it's all about the beef and the strength and whatnot, which obviously starts costing a lot of money.
I feel like we keep coming back to off-roading costing money.
Yeah, but it's what he says. Anything can be done if you have time and money,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Like, that's really what it comes down to. And there's ways to shortcut certain areas.
So
but
working
what are you giving up?
backwards, right? Working backwards from a tube chassis buggy with, an LS3 or something, having this ridiculous high horsepower, big tire, fabricated axle or fabricated axle housings for rear steer, all this crazy cool stuff, right? Like those are all great. Triangulated front and rear,
Propane-driven.
yeah, propane for off angles, like awesome stuff. Necessary? No.
No, not at all.
Now, there are certain factors in those builds that are 100% necessary to start out with.
And what's the basics for rock crawling? It's low in
Clearance.
power, clearance, tire size, and armor.
Yeah. I think one that gets overlooked there is torque a lot.
Yeah, so the low in power.
I think a lot of people just immediately go to gearing as a replacement for torque.
The Wapow.
Yeah, and I think there's different schools of thought. Me personally, like I like to balance it. I don't think just going to some ridiculous triple low 18 transfer case Toyota build is an answer for my 4-cylinder only makes 65 horsepower.
It works. I mean, it does work.
It's not that it doesn't work.
You got 1,000-to-1 first gear ratio.
Yeah, but
You're gonna get over it eventually.
but that's no fun.
True. We're back to the fun part. Yep.
Yeah, personally, I'm a car guy. I've done the racing thing. I like to go fast every once in a while.
It is fun.
Who doesn't like a good roar of a big V8?
I've looked at the nitrous express for the 4 liters. It's not that expensive.
Yeah, but again, nitrous doesn't really help you with low end torque. Like that's a horsepower thing. That's there's going to be applications for it in rock crawling, but it's not
We
the
need
main
just that little bit of
focus.
oomph.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's low in power,
yeah,
decently sized tires so you can clear differentials.
yeah.
Armor to protect the gushy underside of the vehicle.
Let's talk tires. I think it hurts my soul to say this, but I think 35s are probably a minimum number these days.
I'm still running a 33 though.
Yes, but you're also driving a shit box that you don't care to break.
Yeah, but it can be done.
But so
doing-
that doesn't apply as much now to rock crawling because it's not a daily driver, right? It's trailer queen.
True.
So if you smash a window out, ding a door, you can't open the door anymore. Nobody really cares.
If I smash a window out, I'm selling the vehicle. I will have full glass.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I
Just
don't.
replace the window. That's a bit aggressive.
No, because if you smash the window on a tree, that window
Everything-
frame's not
everything
getting
else is
glass back,
screwed.
put back in it. Glass isn't flexible. But I'm with you. I like to maintain glass in my vehicle as well. That way you don't have to rule out wheeling in weather, right? Just because it's raining doesn't like nobody wants to sit in rain gear in a wet, moldy Jeep all day. Like I'm with you.
Talk to him. He's done it before.
Yeah. It's not that it can't be done on 33s. I think with what's available on the market now, 33s really limit your tire choice.
Are the Rubicons still 33s from the factory?
Yes.
Let's talk about that Jeep. Come on, Jeep. Where you at? No,
They're
no answer.
only 33s?
Yeah, the Jeep hasn't gone to the 35.
Yeah,
for
but,
the,
but
that's still a on-road vehicle.
Yeah,
Like,
you're talking. They're coming with 285 7017s, which equates to a 3311 and a half. That is
don't ever forget the fact they're still a car manufacturer.
Right.
Like they're designed to sell to people who are going to drive to work.
people who get paid ridiculous amounts of money and salary
And don't do their
sit
job
in
well.
offices to decide what people want or they think they know what people want in the market. Have decided that,
But they don't.
But they do a pretty good job. They've decided that 33s are
the entry
minimum.
level.
the standard, right? The entry level. Anything
Well, because it
less
used
than-
to be 33 used to be the number.
Right.
I mean 33
No,
back in the
31s
late
back in the
80s,
day
early
used to be
90s.
Yeah,
massive.
yeah. I mean,
Huge.
my first X-Ray, I had 31s on it. My dad referred to it as a monster truck. We put 31s on an X-Ray the other day at the shop, and it was like the smallest thing in our parking lot. So
And everyone commented on
Yeah.
are those stock tires? No, that's
No,
a lifted
yeah.
XJ.
Yeah.
So there's been an evolution in the industry, and I think the 33 is not that it's not a capable tire. I just for what vehicles are being used as the basis for these rock crawlers, a JK doesn't take much to put 35s on.
Nope.
2.5.
The JL is coming stock with 33, so you're not even upgrading it by leaving it on 33.
Well, the Rubicon will fit 35s without doing anything.
Right. And from a ground clearance standpoint, we're not so much looking at vehicles that are straight out of the box capable anymore. From rock crawling, you are building it to do something.
Yes.
And I think 35s is
Yeah,
where you should start.
35 is my goal. I'd love to get
Right.
there. I just have to wear out the tires I have first.
Sure.
Yes,
But
35
I think that
is-
comes too with a lot of privately owned places are building obstacles to
Correct.
challenge you. So
Yeah.
Yes.
that whole out of the box mentality is kind of going out the window
Right.
as far as newer
I
attractions.
mean, that's what.
look at the new Mammoth Trail.
right.
Yeah, but that's my point, right? It's like there's plenty of places where 33s will get you by just fine. I mean, he ran,
Yeah, I ran 33s on scrap heap
Yeah.
its whole life, and
and it was totally
It was
fine
great.
for the trails that we were doing. But these new attractions that are coming out, the whole point is to challenge the status quo. So a 35 minimum
yeah.
is necessary.
Yeah.
Like the 35 is the new 33. You know,
which is ridiculous because
oh yeah, it's nuts.
like it's still large to me, which is not large anymore.
It's still a massive tire. I actually had a customer walk in the showroom and saw a set of 35s sitting in the showroom. He goes, "What are those 40s?" No, those are 35s.
Do you want 40s? Like,
And he's
40s.
like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, they look a little bit bigger when they're not on the vehicle." And he's
Yeah.
like, "That's crazy. Like, I didn't realize the 35 was that big of a tire." And it is. It's a
Yeah.
huge tire. Like, I'm not downplaying it as its ability, but
I mean, you think about it, it's almost 3 feet across. Like that's a
Right.
That's a big.
when it comes down to planning your rock crawler, you almost want to start with your tire size. What size tire do you want to run? Right? I ask that question all the time when we plan out a build.
Yep.
You know, because depending on how far you're taking your build, you can build it around a tire size. A lot of people will probably say it's a terrible idea, but
No,
it's not, because your tire size is going to base your ride height. It's going to base your suspension travel. You know, we can build something for 37s all day. You put 40s on it, you're now limiting your up travel. You're limiting the strength of your axle housings.
That's
Whatever
just
it is.
assuming it'll fit.
Right,
right?
well,
Like-
but to that point, right? Like, you're either going to add bump stop or take away bump stop or
Take
have
away
to cut
fenders.
fender.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do something to fit a different size tire. So starting at your tire size is a great,
At least bare minimum, keeping it in mind.
yeah. And then that factors into what vehicle do you choose, right? Like you said, fitting 35s on your XJ is
close to
it's a
impossible,
task.
yeah.
It's a task. It's a big lift. It's a lot of trimming. You
It's
know,
not. We got one coming in that has it on there.
Yeah, it's tough.
But
Though.
it's
It's a
money.
lot of trimming.
yeah,
It's time and money.
So you know, if 35s is the quote unquote standard, and you have a goal to run a certain trail or a certain type of trail, and you know you need or you should use 35s to do that. If you're not going to use 35s because your XJ only allows you to fit 33s, then you got to replace it with something. You know, whether it's lockers or strength or driver ability, whatever. You know, there's always that trade off. But starting with 35s, I think, is a really good point.
Yep, and your tire size does dictate your whole build.
Yep.
Because if you want to get to 37s, 40s, you have to consider axles,
Correct.
and that is a whole new ball game, and it's I don't know where I'm going.
Well, it's
lost
I
my
think.
train of thought.
I think if I'm tracking you, then like we talked about previously with overlanding, right? You're going to get more out of overlanding typically with an independent front suspension. It's going to add comfort. It's going to add flexibility. When you're talking about rock crawling, that solid front axle is still pretty much king to this day, unless you're going to throw a lot of money into an independent front suspension to beef it up.
Sure. Well, but even the geometry of it, you're going to be able to fit the bigger tire, not just in strength, but also in how it works.
Yep.
You know, the independent front suspension is just that, it's independent. So one wheel doesn't affect the other.
Yep.
Which means if you run a big tire and you stuff both wheels, you're kind of screwed. You're not going to really ever stuff both wheels on a solid front axle.
No, one's gonna be drooping.
Right. And that comes down to the lines you take, right? Like going back to driving for what you've built. You always want to go over your rock, not around it.
Tire on the rock,
Yeah.
not in between the tires.
And that's where the independent front suspension kind of falls short.
Yep.
Because they typically...
or it comes above because you can put the bigger rocks down the middle.
True. You get more ground clearance, but you're going to lose that down travel, right? Like,
You do.
Like you lose that
Because
droop.
when you're pushing that tire, when that tire's stuffing up, it's forcing the other side down. Your independent front suspension is just dangling.
Yeah, because your center diff is tucked up in the body on an independent front suspension. Yeah, you might get an extra 3, maybe 4 inches over something on solid axles, but that's only going to get you so far. You know, you're still going to have to drive over a big rock at some point. It's
got to go into your tire every time.
And having a good long travel coil over with long arms and a good 4 or 3 link, that's going to allow that opposite tire to still have some sort of traction.
The long arm stuff is really nice too. I went long arms 2 years ago, and it's completely changed everything. It's just all about that down travel. I think that's where a lot of the industry is going and has been the last few years, is low center of gravity, mostly down travel vehicles.
Well, and a lot of that comes down to the tire size standard, right? Like, you know, we were just talking about how fitting 35s on your XJ is hard to do without a massive lift, and that's raising your center of gravity, making you more top heavy, more likely to tip over. And now we're seeing Jeep as kind of the main manufacturer fitting these massive tires from the factory, giving you enough space where you don't need a massive lift to fit 37s, right? Like a JL Rubicon 2-inch spacer lift, and you're putting 37s on it comfortably.
Yeah.
Comfortably.
Well, even comparing
that's-
the JK to the XJ, right? Like you're talking XJ 6 to 8 inches of suspension to fit a 35, and a JK's taking 2.5 inches.
Yeah.
So just using that math and that science of keeping the weight down and allowing the wheels to always be in contact with the ground, right? You know, we always the old saying, rubber side down.
Yep.
You know, that holds true in any motorsport. If your wheels aren't on the ground, you're not doing anything.
Yay, high centering.
And that's where lockers come in, because you may have a wheel off the ground
Yep.
and one wheel is still on the ground. But if you're opened,
Yep.
your wheel off the ground is going to be spinning.
Yep.
So lockers are limited slips,
Yep.
also called LSDs, are very,
Yep.
very popular when it comes to the rock crawling
Yeah.
stuff that we keep traction.
So we're
Especially in our area, considering how wet the ground
It can be. It can be very wet.
so you're talking 35s, lockers, you know, some sort of long travel suspension.
If you can, not necessary.
It's not necessary, but
From a comfort standard and a ease of access to certain things, long travel suspension is definitely a go-to.
yeah, I think with rock crawling, it's much easier to put a standard on performance than overlanding. Overlanding is very much a what kind of driving, where do I want to go, what am I doing? Rock crawling is rock crawling. It's the only question is how big of a rock do I want to crawl over, or how many rocks do I want?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can build a rig to do small baby rocks. Small baby rocks will get you in trouble just as fast as big rocks if you're not built correctly.
Yeah,
If
small
you're
baby
driving
rocks,
through just rocks, that will
Right.
they slide, they
create your issue.
move, they end up in places you
So-
don't want to because they're getting kicked out by your tires.
I use scrap heap as a great example. You know, that thing was built to beat the crap out of it, or not built.
I was going to say
because we
it
were gonna
wasn't.
build-
It
beat the
wasn't
crap out-
built.
Yeah,
Yeah, true.
and the idea was how far can we push this super
Dana
budget?
35 rear axle.
Still the only thing that didn't break on that stupid thing.
I know, but at one
putting that
point
out
the
there.
goal was to
Yeah, oh,
blow
yeah.
it up.
Yeah, I mean it was
So
essentially
to
an
everyone
R&D.
who says Dana 35s are shit,
They are.
they are, but they
But-
also can be very reliable.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know that thing became an R&D project, right? Like how far can we push this stock component? How far can we push this? And what it comes down to is I had 33s on it. It had a
Yep.
Dana 30 open on the front, Dana 35 open in the rear.
Guiding JLUs on
Sure.
35s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it
That are locked.
Was it capable? Yeah. Is a good chunk of that the experience as a driver? 100%.
Oh, yeah.
But I still managed to break that thing on what would be considered
An access road.
green or blue trails.
Yep.
Right. Like you don't like we didn't have to go and dump it into Bunny Hole or run the rock pile to kill that Jeep.
Nope.
What it came down to was I'm
It
going to
broke.
take I'm going to take this harder line and
There goes the control
the
arm.
factory control arms just folded and snapped in half for the third time.
We broke so many control
And
arms.
then coming out of the hole with only 2 control arms attached to the axle,
ripped the drive shaft apart.
found a puddle that was probably 8 inches deep and completely destroyed the entire drivetrain.
Yeah.
Found
Yep.
all the neutrals.
So had that been built, quote unquote, properly, right? 35s. Yeah, that probably speeds up me killing the axles, right? Dana 35s are notoriously weak. 33s, light 33s, like a good C-load tire.
We'll hurt it.
Well,
Could hurt it.
No, that's what kept it from getting hurt.
Yeah.
If I had run a D
Ds
or
or
an E, a
Es.
heavier tire that's
true.
10,
Yeah, okay.
15 pounds heavier per wheel, it's going to
The 35 would have smoked.
Yeah.
For sure.
And also, you're just being smart with your throttle and everything, picking your lines and things like
Brian.
Yeah, so smart with your throttle is important because it's not a throttle game when it comes to rock
Correct.
crawling.
Correct.
It is very much
It's
that. Unless you're
specific situations where
Correct,
it's a throttle
yes.
game. The
So you're-
entire duration of your trip is not about
unless
your
you're
throttle.
like me and you like the sound of your engine when you put your foot on the floor.
4.0s never sound good straight pipe.
I didn't say straight piped. I said foot on the
No,
floor.
that's only Brian. That's only Brian.
that's
who
a
thinks
Brian
that.
thing. That's a crazy redneck thing.
Now, to be fair, he's got to rev it because he's only running 307s. So.
Yeah, so bringing that up, gearing, right? You know, we talked about no displace or replacement for displacement with 4-cylinder turbos.
Yep.
Gears can be your replacement for displacement in rock crawling.
Yep. A lot of power can be made up in low range.
And the easiest way to sum it up is the bigger the number, the lower the gear, kind of like golf. And the lower the gear, the more theoretical torque you get at speed.
Yep.
Or at a low speed.
Because the trade-off is your higher speed will suffer.
Yeah. For easy math and discussion, if you look at a 4-to-1 gear ratio, in the sense of a Jeep, for every every 4 revolutions of your engine, you're going to get 1 revolution to your wheels.
Of the drive shaft.
Yeah.
Unless you're coming out of the transfer case.
We're going simple.
Oh, really easy.
Very simple.
Yeah, just
very simple.
slow your roll there.
Of
bud.
the pinion.
I'll get to that.
All right, got it.
So 1 revolution.
I think you missed a few steps. That's a
I'm
very
going
interesting
to
vehicle.
I'm going to add the steps in little by little, my friend.
Minimal steps.
You already understand how this works. I'm trying to explain to people who may not know how this works, so they understand how it works.
There you go.
So for every 4 revolutions of your engine, your wheels are going to spin once. That's
pretty insane.
That's pretty normal. So now all of a sudden, as Tim is alluding to,
and as the plane flies over our garage.
You have multiple parts of your vehicle that reduce that gear ratio further. So each gear in your transmission is going to be a reduction, until you get to like usually 5th or 6th gear, where you start seeing your 1-to-1s or your overdrive gears, where they actually spin faster than what the engine is doing. But that's unrelated to what we're talking about.
If you're rock crawling in 5th or 6th gear, you got bigger problems.
Yeah, it's not really applicable to the rock crawling side of it. And then on top of that, you have a transfer case. That transfer case is what sends your power. If you're in 2-wheel drive, the power goes through it to your rear axle. If you're in 4-wheel drive, you're now connecting a secondary drive shaft, which powers your front wheels. That can also have a gear reduction. And then at your axles themselves, you have another gear reduction. So yes, the simplicity of 1 revolution to 4 mathematically doesn't fit. But the idea is, as you go through each component, you're reducing it further and further and further, which is why, at 1,000 RPM, your wheels are going,
Depends on what range you're in. You could be going, half a mile an hour.
Yeah, half mile an hour.
But getting over that rock, you've got
that's where you want it.
Incredible low end torque.
Right. Because that's essentially doing is it's keeping the traction and the grip and the friction in your tires on whatever surface you're on without the power slipping. So when you start talking about rock crawling, having those lower gears really helps apply that every bit of that torque to the tire itself.
Low speed, lots
and then
of
getting the power to the ground comes through the tires, which we've gone into to a long conversation about. But then you got to
do a whole episode just on tires and how they work and the different compounds and
airing down your tires. Depends on bead locks. What you run. I run bead locks. I run 10 pounds of air in my tires because I've run that on non-bead locks and the beads popped off.
Yeah.
Bead lock just takes the tire.
The air in your tire is part of its structure.
So the bead lock takes the tire and clamps it to the wheel with 32
individual
tiny bolts that take
torque to a very
forever
specific,
to torque.
Times that by 5.
I only did 4. I guess I did 5 on Fiamettas.
Yeah, we've done 5 a lot.
But I think the biggest thing with that, you brought up airing down, is obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, as much surface area as you can get helps you get over those obstacles.
It gets that traction.
Obviously,
that power down.
The more surface area, the more grip you have. So it's the gamble of airing down enough to get you more surface area without doing it so much that if you don't have bead locks, you don't pop your tire right off your bead.
Yeah, you'll hear the term contact patch. It's an easy way to test it and figure out the right pressure to run your tire is take some sidewalk chalk, draw on your tire, roll the Jeep forward or the truck forward, measure that spot. Most tires you're going to get maybe a 3-inch, 4-inch square where the tire is actually contacting the ground. Let 5 psi out, do it again. now you're going to see maybe a 6-inch long spot. So not only are you getting more surface area to the ground, but you're also able to wrap around a rock. You're able to hold it or grip it like almost like a hand.
Which will also help protect you from pointy rocks too if you're going slow enough too.
Yep.
Your tire's too aired up, you will puncture your tire a lot.
And your ride quality will also be miserable. Just driving through the woods down
especially with the bigger tires.
down
They're
these
thicker
access
material.
trails.
So.
You'll be bouncing around, getting thrown around the cab.
Yeah.
You air down, and you're like, oh, this is pretty nice.
Well, another thing too, you bring up going down access roads too, is for people who are newer, don't ever forget to switch out of 4-wheel drive when you're going down those access
huge,
roads too, because leaving your vehicle in 4 low, coming out of a rock garden, going down an access road, you're going to hear a nasty little whine start up, and that's your transmission and your transfer case are not going to be happy.
Well, and that goes back to your gear reduction, right? That 4 low versus 4 high. 4 low is a reduced gear. In your typical Jeep, right? Your older XJs, ZJs, TJs, YJs. That's usually an NP231 to 272 to 1. So that when you're in 4 low, you are doubling the reduction of whatever gear your transmission is in.
And when you are rock crawling, you should be in low range.
Correct.
I've had so many people, first timers, that don't put it in low range, and they're like, "Why isn't this working?" Put it in low range, and it's
because it's all about torque. It's not about wheel speed. You want to talk about wheel speed, you're talking about driving through mud, through puddles.
Yeah. So the thing with gear ratios are they're multiplied. They're not added. So most first gear transmissions are usually about 3 to 1, 4 to 1. Then your transfer case is, if it's a stock transfer case, is 2.7. And
you're doing math?
Yeah, I'm going to do some quick math here.
Quick maths.
If your rear axle has been re-geared, you're running 35-inch tires, and you've got 456s in your axles. When it's all said and done, you're about 50 to 1.
From your initial drive,
initial drive,
and that's without any doublers or anything.
Correct. Like that's a relatively stock drivetrain in your Jeep, and that like a non-Rubicon. Rubicon's got a 4 to 1.
Yeah.
So if you've got a Rubicon Wrangler,
you're 200 to 1 at that point.
No, it'll be less than that.
You're 73 to 1.
Quick maths.
And again, that's rough numbers. You see guys that run doublers that are 4 to 1. So you have 4 to 1 on top of your 4 to 1, and then
that's
16 to 1 at that point.
That's when you get into the crawl competitions where they stick them in first and just let them roll and see who can roll the slowest.
What's your budget rig? What's your unlimited budget rig?
I like short wheelbase.
Okay, so a 2-door.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased staring at my YJ.
Yours does have extended body though.
Yeah. So there is I believe that there is a such thing as too short of a wheelbase.
Yes.
Yeah. But there's obviously
TJs.
too long.
I'd say a 5. Like a CJ5 is too short of a wheelbase.
I hate to be the stereotypical Jeep guy, but I think the LJ has the ideal wheelbase.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
It's about 110 inches in wheelbase, which gives you the ability to make tight turns, fit in small places, but you're not so short that it's uncomfortable on the highway, or you have a...
That's why long arms are TJs are. They're fantastic.
Or you can't climb over things. The main reason the extended wheelbase on my YJ is really nice is because it pushes the axles out without changing the length of the vehicle.
Yeah,
just changes the length of that front drive shaft to 53 inches.
Yeah, it's a long one. Thankfully, it's not a highway going vehicle, so it's not a problem.
Trailer
I think Adams would have refused at that point.
But I think the with wheelbase comes departure and departure angles.
Yeah.
Or it's approach and departure. Sorry, it's been a long day.
Is that wheelbase or is that what's the middle one?
That's a breakover angle.
Breakover angle.
Yeah. So
that's more wheelbase because you can change your bumpers and change your approach and departure angles.
Well, right. So or in my case where I've changed the wheelbase and helped my approach and departure angles because I've moved the axles forward without lengthening the vehicle.
Correct.
So you're getting into some fairly extensive fabrication work.
Leaf springs make it easy.
Leaf springs make it very easy, but at the same time, these aren't weekend projects and a case of beer for the average person. You see kits out there for like TJs and whatnot that will extend the wheelbase and cut the tubs and give you that 110-inch LJ wheelbase, right? I think Genrite they call it a TJ to LJ conversion kit. And there's a lot of benefit to that.
But it's not an easy project. We didn't stretch it, but we just did the TerraFlex long arm on my fiance's dad's Jeep, and that was a 30-hour process.
Right, and that's a relatively
like not hard
kit, right? Like there's some
Relatively
welding and brackets.
straightforward.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're not
fabbing
redesigning
anything.
But that's what you would go through with like a stretch kit. Is you can get the kits, but it's not Not
it's
easy.
not just stretching the body.
Yeah,
You're
but
doing other things.
but the stretch kit still is really just the parts you need. You still need the knowledge of the geometry, right? Like just because you give me a pile of metal and joints doesn't mean I can just whip together something, right? Every one of those is going to be unique, and you got to again build it to what you're doing with it. You know, are you running 37s? Where do you want your bumps up? Do you want more down travel, more up travel? What axle are you running? How wide is your axle? Your shock angles? You know, all these things that are necessary to not cause binding in motion. You know, the hard part with rock crawling is you don't just have straight up and down axle movement.
So you've got the LJ. What are you doing? 37s, 35s?
I'm like you. I like the challenge. I want to have to be able to drive it. Like if I could, I don't want to say an unlimited budget, but if budget wasn't really an issue, LJ Rubicon 35s, long arms,
Rubahara just for fun.
I can't bring myself to off-road a Rubahara.
Yeah, I'm a little bit too much of a purist for that.
Buddy did it, and it just
Actually,
killed my soul.
Shout out to Buddy and the guy he sold that Jeep
Yeah, he
to.
restored it.
Did you see the pictures?
I've not
Yep.
seen the pictures of it yet.
Wild.
It looks
Wild.
yeah.
I
Like
don't-
honestly, if you had shown me the before pictures
Yeah.
and asked if I ever thought that it could be done properly and
Yeah.
well, I would have said no chance in
Yeah.
hell.
I mean,
That guy
if
did
it wasn't a
fantastic
Rubahara and
job.
serialized, I wouldn't have believed it was the same Jeep.
Yeah.
like he did that. He did a great job with it because Buddy just trashed that poor
Trashed it.
thing.
Oh my gosh.
But like LJ Rubicon, 35s, long arms, I'd probably keep the 4-liter. Maybe build it as a stroker.
Put a little spoolie blow in there.
Yeah, probably not. I think the 4-liter is a very good rock crawling engine. You know, keeping 35s, you're not going to crave that more horsepower for wheel speed. I think if you wanted more wheel speed, you could easily get that.
But with the 4 liters in the woods, an upgrade you have to do is cooling.
Yeah. The Wrangler platform doesn't have the same cooling issues that you see in the XJ platforms.
Okay.
There's a lot more space and heat sink in the engine bays, I think. Not saying they don't run hot, they're just not as hot.
They don't.
Curious
get
to
the
see how
240
hot yours will
regularly.
run with that V8 stuffed in there.
Yeah, it's going to be a hot boy.
I mean, not any hotter than mine.
I think
The small
Mine's
blocks,
gonna be-
the small blocks
mine-
don't
yeah.
run very hot.
yeah.
I mean, it was pushing 220 sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah, but we haven't done any carburetor tuning.
True.
Like we haven't really dialed in fans yet. Like
It's got the. Did you ever change the water pump out?
yeah,
On that-
pretty
on that
we did
block?
when we
Yeah.
built that
Okay,
bike.
I was gonna say,
was
if
a
not,
while ago.
that water pump is 50 years old.
Yeah.
That'll be the first thing to go if it hasn't been.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to differ, and feel free to just light me up in the comments. I'm going automatic.
Oh, I love my automatic. I wouldn't go manual.
I think there was a case to be made back in the day. You know, we've had this discussion before
Yeah.
where, you know, the computer didn't run the motor as well, so it would slip into other gears as you were going downhill. But, you know, there was definitely a case to be made back in the day where having a stick shift was king because it would stay in gear. Whatever gear you put it in, that's where it was staying.
Yep.
The computers
You were in control of the
nowadays
vehicle.
are good enough. I mean, and we've experienced that in person. My JK was a prime example of that. I would stick that thing in first going down a hill, and it would never come out of first, and I wouldn't have to put my foot on the brake.
Yeah, and the benefit in my mind, and this is coming from a hardcore car guy that didn't own an automatic transmission until I was like 25.
Was your XJ automatic?
Yes, yeah. My XJ in high school was a 5-speed. Okay. I still kick myself for selling that. We now have the ability to tune and program the older automatics.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but there's things out there you can do to make your automatic better.
Yep. I run a shift controller. Trevor's got a shift controller on his. It runs like a standard. There's just no clutch.
Yep.
And I don't have to throw my arm 6 inches to change the gear.
Mine will be interesting compared to yours because it's a legitimate.
It's the whole shift controller.
It's the whole shift controller.
Yeah. It was because you're running the 4L60, which is an electronic computer controlled transmission
behind a carbureted engine.
With no computer.
Correct.
So you essentially have a manual
Correct.
that does all the work for you, like Tim's talking about, and like that technology is making the automatics a lot easier to deal with.
Well, look at the racing industry. The whole off-road racing industry is everything is automatic.
Well, and that's why the shifter that I have was made when we talked to him because the 700 R4s, which go with the manual transmissions, are so hard to find now because all of the racing guys wanted 700 R4s because they're great transmissions. The 4L60E
just the later version of that.
The later version of that for the automatic.
Yeah, the later.
Yeah.
But typically to run that, you need $1,000 computer that you can sit there and program in, whereas this shifter,
5 wires and you're good to go.
Yep. And it's great. So,
well, but even at that, if we see guys doing these LS swaps and running these Chevy truck motors in everything. Hashtag LS swap.
Everything. I've got one in a Camaro.
Yeah.
Turbo
we've got
400s.
2 that we're wrapping up at the shop right now that are one's a Wagoneer and one's a Cherokee Chief, both with LSs in them. And like we have a guy in house that does the tuning. He can sit there and go at this speed, at this torque, at this engine load, shift at this many milliseconds. We can literally make the transmission do whatever we want in any parameter we want. And as we're growing that database of information, we're realizing like the new Jeeps come with like 90 different transmission shift maps.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Yeah. Like if you're in 4-low with the rear locker on and you're going downhill at this temperature, the transmission is going to do this.
That's wild.
And it's making that decision for you instantaneously, as opposed to a manual where, not saying that every driver is going to make the wrong decision, but you have to make a decision, and you have a lot more mechanical moving parts that can fail. Like nothing's worse than slipping your clutch and then being stranded, right? Like that just sucks.
Well, and I think for beginners too, you have that, take as much out of their hands as you can because to help them enjoy that first time experience. Yeah. Anyone who's driven a manual on the road, you have to think about it, but you get used to it where you're not thinking about it as much. Off road, you are constantly
relearning it.
Yeah, because it's not like driving on the highway.
Yep. Yeah, I mean when you're driving down the highway, you're gonna shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and cruise.
Yep.
And you're
at
done
higher
shifting.
RPMs too.
Right. But now when you're off roading, if you start in first and you really should have started in second, it's gonna be real hard to shift going up that rock.
Yep.
So now you're bumping it, you're power shifting it, like all these things that
hurt the vehicle.
Will eat a transmission,
or eat your clutch, like that's there. And then, but even just choosing it, right, knowing your vehicle that well that you can go, I need more wheel speed for this obstacle, so I need to back up further, get to third gear, and go through it at this RPM. And holding it at that RPM is very difficult to do. And for the average person, that can be pretty costly from a repair standpoint.
Well, it's also a lot to learn too. I mean, it's
sure. I mean, I don't think the process of learning shouldn't limit what you do.
No. I think just more from a first timer perspective. Right. That's a lot because not only you're learning how to off road.
Yeah.
Subsequently, you're exactly you're relearning how to operate.
We've had experienced people. Who have come out and ridden in groups with us that were in their first manuals.
Yep.
Yeah.
And whether it's choosing 4-low or not being in first or second, or going up to third because you're in 4-low.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're in low range with a manual, you've got to start in third gear.
Right. Or yeah,
just to get anywhere.
How about just leaving it in park versus leaving it in gear?
Yeah.
How many times have we seen people start to roll backwards down the hill because they forgot they were in a stick shift and didn't put the e-brake on and didn't put it in gear, and there you go.
Yeah, or the parking brake's not holding tight enough.
Yeah.
But it's, going back to that gear reduction, that manual transmission, you've got to adjust for the fact that you've got more gear reduction. Your first gear is 6-1, and you've got a Rubicon that's 4-1, and you've geared for your 37s and your 513. First gear is going to be completely useless on anything other than a steep hill.
Yeah.
So
steep hill, giant rock.
Right. So where you would normally drive in first and second to do 15 miles an hour, when you're on that access road, first gear is going to be 4,000 RPM doing 3 miles an hour, which is going to eventually toast your engine.
Yep.
So there's so much more decision making that goes into a manual, and I think for guys like us, it's not that we can't do it, but I'm
Probably
sorry.
can.
It's more enjoyable when I
A day of trail riding is 8 hours behind the wheel.
Yeah, it takes
I'm
a toll on
using
your
my
body.
left leg,
Yeah.
using my right arm, I'm toasted.
In an
I'm tired in an automatic.
Yeah, in an automatic, it's straight, especially if you're doing mostly rock gardens and stuff like that, where it's a lot of starting and stopping, a lot of adjusting. It takes a toll on your body. Yeah. I mean, somehow we still manage to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning in the woods, but the one thing you want to do when you're done at the end of the day is sit down in a chair and not do anything.
Right. Drink a beer and talk about the stories from the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, fight me in the comments all you want. I'm going automatic.
I'm pro automatic.
Would I go the stock LJ 42R LE?
No.
Absolutely not.
Probably not.
Absolutely not. Probably not. Not absolutely not.
Probably not. The 42R LE is not terrible.
Because
like
what do you have in the
computer
YJ?
That's a 46 RH. That's out of a Dodge truck because it's the 5.2.
Yep.
Which I believe you can get the internals. So you can get a 42 RH, which came in the Grand Cherokees behind the 4-liter and the V8, and you can build your 42 RH to be a 46 RH, which is a half-ton truck.
Oh, nice.
Transmission at that point, and I think they even make 46 RH HD parts. So there's tons of adapters out there if you really want to spend the money and go that route. The going back that 20 years to when the TJ-LJ platforms were new, the automatics were not as good as the manuals that were out. The early TJs having the AX15, great 5-speed. The NV3550 is a really good 6-speed. Not as durable as you would like it to be to high horsepowers, but
you're not running high horsepower with a 4-liter.
That's the benefit of the 4-liter, right? High horsepower is great. When it comes to rock crawling, it's not always necessary, and
no, torque's more important than horsepower at that
horsepower
point.
Is what breaks things, in my opinion, right? Going back to scrap heap.
Horsepower broke that.
But it didn't. Abuse of it broke it.
True.
And it's easier to abuse things when you have big horsepower.
Yes. Correct.
Big motor, big horsepower is...
Especially for someone like
abuse.
you who likes going fast and
who doesn't like the skinny pedal.
But that's my point, is that you throw on top of that someone who really likes the skinny pedal.
Right.
You're going to eat it up pretty quickly.
Well, and if your budget allows, then
do it.
You build yourself a nasty set of 1-tons. You get some fabricated axle housings that are 1/4-inch steel, and you buy the
and
biggest,
we're back
baddest
to Tim's
parts.
Hellcat.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you spend
like what does Jeep say? Hellcat fits in this one too.
that's, we have not off-roaded with a 392 yet.
I've seen them.
I would love to. I would love to see how it does.
I've seen them outfitted for off-roading.
Oh, I'm not saying
in the
people
wild.
aren't
I'm curious
doing
to
it,
see how the 4xe stands up too.
I think the 4xe is actually going to do really well.
Well, but that's my point. Is with
If
the
they
electric
don't-
vehicles with instantaneous torque.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
It's massive.
The 4xe is still more of a Wrangler. It's more of a plug-in hybrid thing.
Yes.
It's not really, you're not really adding a bunch of performance in that sense,
Yeah.
like we talked about with the Rivians. But the 392 is just so much horsepower.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. And it
It is.
sounds
It's so cool.
so good.
Because they come with the cutouts from the factory, don't they?
I know. I love pushing that button.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Diesel or 392?
392.
like the new 3-liter Eco Diesel.
Diesel. I'm choosing diesel. Even though I was just cursing diesel like
Daily
an
driver?
hour ago.
Daily driver or rock crawler?
Oh, both? Which one are you choosing for which?
$392 for
daily.
Yeah.
Diesel for rock crawler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you told me I had to build 2 JL rigs, one for every day and one for
$392 for
strictly
every day
trail
on the
rig,
road.
diesel as a trail rig, $392 for every day.
$392 horsepower.
Because unfortunately, premium gas is still cheaper than diesel, and I'm pretty sure even the 392 is still getting like 18, 19 under normal cruising conditions. Like it's
I'm surprised we haven't seen more diesel swaps. I've seen a few, but in the rock crawling world, you don't see a lot of diesel swaps because they're so efficient. They produce so much torque at such a low.
I think you're probably going to see
end.
it more like, we've got the build coming into the shop hopefully here soon.
I think it's an accessibility thing. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
lack of.
Because you got to think like the R2.8 from Cummins,
It's
right?
$10,000, yeah.
It's $8,500 for the motor itself with the wiring kit and everything. If you're
can get
hooking it
one.
up, like we're gonna try and put one in a manual XJ. The adapter kit is $1,500. You're talking $10,000, no labor involved buying that motor.
Yeah, we haven't
adapter.
even put it in yet. We're just buying the parts for $10,000.
Yeah, so I think that's probably why. I think the diesel, from a fuel economy standpoint, probably has a more realistic lifespan in an overlanding setting where you're traveling a lot and still potentially rock crawling, doing all that stuff. But you're talking about fuel efficiency at that point. Plus, it was double the horsepower, triple the torque versus the straight six.
Yeah, it's like 300 something foot-pounds and
Yeah.
like 220, 230.
So you're
horsepower.
talking.
I
You're talking
do see the
about
diesels coming into play more in the future of.
So with the accessibility, it comes the packaging too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like doing any
bigger,
motor
the
swap is
heavier.
a huge job.
Yes.
Right. The 4-liter is a fat pig. It's a cast iron. The block is 4 foot long. Like there's a ton of space in Jeeps, but there's also not a lot of small package diesels. So you look at the.
Well, there's not a
Cummins
lot that are skinny compared to the 4-liter,
Right.
Like,
well,
it's a length thing. It's not a width thing. So, like, even like the small block in the Comanche
Right.
is stuffed
Right.
in there width-wise.
right. So like the Duramax in your truck, the 6.6 LB7 Duramax is a V8 platform. V8s, and it's a big V8 with the turbo, with the exhaust, all these things that are big parts just don't translate well to short wheelbase, narrow vehicles.
Yep.
And then you start talking about your smaller diesels, like a Cummins 4BT. It's not like there's 100 of those laying around every junkyard. If you live out in farm world where 4BTs were used in tons of equipment, maybe you can pick one up. But you're still talking, you're losing a lot of translation. You've got to wire up your own gauges. You've got to redo the whole exhaust. Your fuel system has to change. Your cooling system has to change. Your motor mounts change. It's just not an easy, typical DIY thing to do. And your cost benefit is not really there much. The 4-liter is a great low end torque, relatively efficient engine.
Well, your dream rig was for a while was the JKJL
With the 4-liter.
with the 4-liter, but
Damn you,
Quadratec. Yeah.
Quadratec. Damn you, Quadratec, for building that YJL. You stole my
I'd still
idea.
do it. I'd still do it.
Let me drive it, just maybe once or twice.
Well, and like you were talking about
Send the check.
Send the check.
the stroker at one point, right? Like you can convert your
Yeah.
4-liter into essentially a 4.2.
On a budget sense, you
Yeah.
can build them very easily into the 4.2s.
So I think that motor is very malleable when it comes to
and
all
it's
the applications.
reliable. Right?
Yeah,
The parts are cheap. You used to be able to pick up 4 liters for a couple $100 on a
anymore.
Saturday. Yeah, I should have bought a lot more of them
Yeah.
stock up.
2 years ago.
Still got one in here.
Yeah, it's over there in the corner.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then there's one with a hole in the block under the workbench.
Nice.
Yeah,
If anybody wants a coffee table, let me know. There's just there's so much that is good that doesn't need to be changed. And I think rock crawling, you really need to focus on where you put your performance.
Yep.
Your gear ratios, your suspension, your tires are the priority. It's start with a good platform that has a lot of parts. available and a lot of things you can do. Especially if you're on a budget, staying away from custom fabrication is a big one. So the Rubicon platform is fantastic
Out of the box.
Yes. You can do very simple upgrades, skid plates, 35s, add a little bit of armor with bumpers, and you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah, if you're looking for that mild to medium off-roading, you're never really going to go much above that. That's the perfect platform. If you're gonna, you know for a fact you're going to,
but it's also very easily expanded.
Yes,
you can start with a standard 2.5, 3.5 short arm lift kit, and then now all of a sudden you're already lifted 3.5 on 37s with your JL, and it's like, oh man, I want to get into some harder stuff. Bang! You just buy the long arm upgrade kit. You don't have to change your shocks, you don't have to change your springs. You add some brake lines, some limiting straps, some bump stop, new control arms, drive shafts, and you're done. So it's an easy thing to expand on without going crazy. But compared to overlanding, rock crawling is a definitely higher dollar activity to get started in.
Much more demanding on the vehicle.
Maintenance, repairs have to be factored into it. Look at us where we've expanded into trucks, trailers, tow rigs,
which need to get fixed
trailer
too.
queens. So now you go from I have one toy to a second toy to tow my toy, and then I need another toy to now camp in while I tow my toy to this place because it's far away and I don't want to. The nearest hotel's an hour away, so I'm just going to buy a really nice
most
camper.
Built off-road rigs are not good on the road.
Right?
They're not comfortable. They're not good on gas.
Yeah, if you want a good rock crawler, it's not a dual purpose vehicle.
It's riding a trailer.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. It's build yourself a high quality overlander if you're not going to do truck and trailer.
Yep.
And obviously the basics,
Which is what a lot of people do. They've got their rigs,
dual
but
purpose is 90% of the market. Right?
Yeah.
Like not.
Well, that's what helps people decide if they really want to do it, because they'll make a dual purpose vehicle. They go out rock crawling. They go, I'm fine with just doing mild stuff.
That's my wife. My wife hates the big rocks. Right.
Yeah.
She doesn't like the slamming the frame rail into the skid plate, like dragging a differential over a boulder. Like
that's the fun.
I agree, it's fun for me.
Yeah.
But she is
Wondering whether or not you just blew something up.
She would much rather cruise down a dirt road, windows down, music blasting, get to a campground, fire up the grill. Like that's her kind of off roading.
Yep.
And that's great. That's awesome. But that's why we will have my rock crawler on the back of my truck.
Yep.
And
your V8 Commander.
My V8 Commander.
As your overlander.
Or even the Durango.
V8 Commander pulling it.
Yeah.
Ooh. No, I'm with you. I've always wanted to build the tow rig into a medium overlander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind of opens up a whole nother category of tow pigs.
Toverlander.
Ooh.
That's so cool.
That one
New market.
Patent pending.
Yeah, that one we can coin. I don't think I've heard that before.
That and Starter Rock, those are ours.
Yeah,
I like that. I just made that up. Toverlander.
Oh my god.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm going to be building my Toverlander all night.
Duramax Toverlander.
But that'll be a conversation for another time. As always, guys, if you have any questions about what we talked about today, anything that was a little too technical you want us to go into a little bit more depth about, reach out to us on all the social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at the Dirt Drive Podcast.
All right,
we will see you next time.